Hello.
How's it going?
Oh, lovely. You?
Approaching Hoofbeats, the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse is Billy Graham's book I've got right beside me, with the message, The White Horse and Its Rider, Part 3. Those who deceive from within the church. Let this be the way that we start this before anybody else gets here. We have looked at the rider who deceives outside the church, and now we inside the church can often unwittingly assist him. Now it is time to discuss a more difficult dimension of this rider on the white horse, the rider who deceives from within the church. Believe me, deception is on the rise within the Christian church, and we ignore it to our peril. Sometimes it is difficult even for a Christian to recognize the deceivers. Jesus spoke of false prophets who perform great signs and miracles to deceive even the elect, if that were possible, Matthew 24:24. Paul tells of the coming Antichrist, whose activity in the last days will be marked by all kinds of counterfeit miracles, signs, and wonders. 2 Theologians 2:9. Satan's greatest disguise has always been to appear before men as an angel of light. What?
What?
Do you hear this?
Yeah.
What is that? I didn't even know. I've never had my phone on volume, and I'm talking about Satan's greatest disguise has always been to appear before men as an angel of light, 2 Corinthians 11:14. The underlying principle of all his tactics is deception. He is exceedingly crafty and clever at the art of camouflage. For Satan's deceptions to be successful, they must be so cunningly devised that his real purpose is concealed. Therefore, he works subtly. Wow. That is amazing. 7 is the number of transformation. Hello to the fabulous people who are joining in today. Stephen, it's great to see you. How are you?
I'm well. How about yourself?
Spectacular. Thank you so much. It was great to interview you yesterday. I'm going to just change this over to gallery view so we're all in the screen. Amazing powerhouses in the house. Tim Wheatley, how are you?
I'm doing great. I am enjoying time here in Mexico.
Woo!
It is nice to be outside of Canada and living on the beach. It's beautiful.
You went to Mexico when, Tim?
This is just about a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, when everything was starting to crack down, I'm like, yeah, this is stupid. So down here in Playa del Carmen, and it's nice. They do have some restrictions, but this is Mexico, and you know the restrictions are everywhere else. And right here, the governor just came out today and said that it shouldn't be long before it is green, which means zero restrictions whatsoever.
Who said that?
The governor. Governor of Quintana Roo, which means right from Cancun through Playa del Carmen, right down to Tulum.
And in the corner, it might say mute.
Wow. Yes, in the corner, George will just help you out and look after that. But if you do have anything that you wanted to say, please do feel free to unmute yourselves because this is a summit so that we can have open conversation. I'm going to just mute anyone that is making noise so that we can focus on the value that we who are here have to offer. Everyone who is coming here is doing so because we, I believe, are peaceful inner warriors looking to unite for common good, which is doing what is right and what is just, and actually assembling in the name of the light and what is truthful. And that is what is lawful, because what Article 61 of the 1215 Magna Carta is about is about actually understanding that our ancestors gave us what we needed as tools to be able to use. And the ones that have come after them too have built off of those things. But right now, the whole foundation is crumbling, and we are the ones that are called to set a new foundation. We are the ones that are being called to do what is required, and that is to step up when we say that it is not okay for our children to be masked in school and have to take them off in order to breathe properly. Like, I was literally told by Chantel's son last night, in fact, who just went back to school, and you're in that fight as a mother. I lost my job over a month ago because I won't wear a mask, and they're going to change the corporate bylaws, I suspect, while we are not sure what's going on, because if we confuse them or if they confuse us, then they lose us and we just lose our desire to fight for it. And we say, oh, well, I feel like I've done enough for today because energetically it zapped me and drained me, and so I'm just going to put this off until tomorrow. But we can't do that anymore, which is why we need to unite. This is why we need to cross our energy fields, which is the power of disconnection for them, the opposition, the ones that would say, please don't remember your power. Please don't remember that you elected us into a corporate position of power that is deemed to be more than it is only because it has been framed in such a way that we said, okay, sure, whatever you say, because you're the one in power, so you must have our best interest at heart, right? I trust. Well, if it's done blindly, how does it benefit anyone if it's not based in a good foundation? So, which is why actually yesterday, since Jackie is not able to actually make it today. Jackie Phoenix is the one who is spearheading the practical lawful dissent movement for redress in the UK right now. She is from Calgary, Canada, as are many of the ones who I see in view. And we are being called to, because ultimately Canada is marked as a red zone. And if we understand what that means, it means that we will only be able to be where they say that is okay. And that is not okay by us who are joining the fight. Marietti, it is great to have you on. She who has helped Chantel and I in understanding the process. I've got my next notice ready that has also my second oath, since I happen to misplace mine, if I'm honest. Not perfect, perfectly imperfect, but doing my best, and that's all that we ask. And if you do it wrong and you don't get it right and you put somebody's name in the wrong place, that's okay. It's a learning game. But the thing is that if we try to learn on our own, we get lost, and then we feel like we've expended energy that got us somewhere, but it didn't if it doesn't move us closer to the truth, which is why we're doing this summit here today. So what I am going to do is actually introduce you to a message that we recorded yesterday with Stephen that is about 20% uploaded onto my YouTube channel. So you'll be able to watch the whole 2 hours plus that we did yesterday in talking. And I am grateful to see that we've got Marietti in view, who has largely been able to answer questions Chantel and I couldn't. And basically the way that this actually begins is so poignant that it's befitting, as it always is in this world that works for us, not to us, in a space where we are being called to clear down clutter in our environment, because if we don't, then we won't have room for what is great. Because ultimately, if we have a full platter and life is always full, we have to understand that if good things are on it, then great things can't make it onto the plate. So we have to make room. So I'm going to show you this first minute or two of the message, and then say hello to Stephen and introduce you to someone that some may question or fear because they don't know a stranger who has now come into view, as each of us all start out to be too. So I'm saying that we have to figure out who to trust and how to do it, but it comes from trusting ourselves first and knowing who we are. And this is an editing software that I use. And so I'm just going to move this into full screen and then show you just the very beginning so that you can hear a question that I feel more people have.
What's happening with that, but like I don't understand like the whole how it can only be standing on it alone if we're expecting laws to be kept, right? So like
that was further down. I wanted to start out sooner. I didn't realize it would start out there. So this is Stephen and Chantel and I.
Feeling safely separate from one another.
Absolutely.
And so this is an opportunity for us to gain access to the information that you've got. We can relate it back to Article 61. I'm not sure whether the gentleman I had invited to come to the meeting, which I apologize for not getting your okay before that. I just felt like put it out there because he's got loads of questions about the Article 61 stuff.
As we all do.
So I just thought put it out and see where it lands. So
Yeah, when there's with the Article 61, like I understand what's happening with that, but like I don't understand like the whole how it can only be standing on it alone if we're expecting laws to be kept, right? So like I'm exactly for Article 61, but I also see some diversions with it that could cause a little bit of destruction as well for people in the system that's already been created flawless. But the tools that, in my opinion, is the tools that are involved in the system right now that are not allowing it to be the way it's supposed to be. So, this is kind of like, when we're attacking at the government and we're trying to dismantle the government, it's almost like we're trying to dismantle ourselves. And when that happens, what kind of society do we have at that point? So, that's kind of one of my really big concerns with how it's being presented with Article 61, just as that acting alone. But, just to give an example of, of things like, I've done a lot of history, a lot of research. I think by chance I, got like one time I wanted to just check out the KA territory, and on Google just did a little random search.
I'm not meaning to take it away from all that's in there, but you guys can go and see that interview, which we will post, because why I stopped it at 144 is because ultimately, how do I get it back to you guys? I want to be able to see you. Can you guys see me? Perfect. Beautiful. So I stopped it there because each of us come to the truth in our own way. And so Stephen has done a lot of investigation. And so all of us are coming here to learn about Article 61. And this is the 6th summit, I believe, that we're doing tonight, where we have come to invest our time, energy, effort, attention, and not money, but it costs money to mail out all of the letters. And so ultimately, we are investing everything we have to a narrative one way or another. And so Stephen has just taken a different perspective, which isn't to then redirect it onto that, but it is to say that if we feel like there's only one thing and that's the only thing we focused on, once we achieve that thing, then we actually don't know how to move beyond that thing. And I appreciate that there is a lot of information that can't be discussed on the very treasonous platform that is being used to, or we're trying to disassemble or attack. So it's just like, there's all of that going on. And Chantel and I, in talking after with Jackie, decided to start hosting these so that we can get the answers that we're seeking. So I say all of this because I'm sure others have questions too. And so this is a platform where we can get answers, and it doesn't need to be me that speaks the whole time either. I just happen to do it because I have a lot to say generally, and also because I hope that I have framed this in a way for others to feel free to respectfully share perspectives too, about how we can use the tools that our ancestors brought before us so that we could actually do what's required for the ones that come from us and after us, so that we have something to leave them instead of unsustainability. And that's me off my high horse. So who's next? Stephen, would you like to share an experience of being connected to people through Article 61 and why you are a truth seeker and how we must use that as the foundation for all of it? Because if truth cannot be contradicted, then everything will be able to fit in its right place if only we can gather all the pieces. And each person has a piece. And articles and laws and all of these things are pieces. So
Correct. So I mean, like how I would say is that, looking at the very beginning of where even the Magna Carta, for instance, started, If you hold the pieces of like going to the Lincoln Cathedral in London, England, it's got a lot of history facts about our democratic birth certificates. So we were born, within the England. Well, we weren't born personally in the England Church, but it stemmed from the England Church, giving us like the seal of like basically God, in the name of God, that we were God's people. And this was presented. If you look up like the Lincoln Democratic birth certificates, Lincoln Cathedral, you'll probably find that information. It gives you a lot of the history about that. But this kind of gives us like our natural rights as human beings. But then because they're going to open up like factories, corporations, and stuff like that, which is where we're going to, get our groceries, buy, maybe able to get resources to build on science, technology, stuff like that. A place where things are stored so we can get these things easily, so we can move, I would say, faster as people to make a better sustainable life, maybe. But we were also given these sort of rights that with these certificates that we are the managers and directors of all these companies that are within our lands. And we can exercise that with the titles that were given to us within the laws within that certificate. And a lot of people, I think, we have the right to act naturally, but in order to like kind of make change in what's happening on the land, you have to act in that capacity to be known and say you're the person making this decision. Like for instance, if someone's making an order to do something against humanity, how do we know who's making that order and how do we know who's responsible for that? So there's got to be a system in place for, you know, you know, I don't know, like if we don't have the system, who's to say like, who takes your house or someone else's house and who's to protect those people if that happens and who's right and who's wrong? And, so you have a lot of like questions in terms of using it to a degree that if you don't know how to use this tool, then it's like you're not doing it the prop, like what the way is that would be, I guess, what everyone agreed on many years ago. And this is, I think, something that's been hidden from us. This tool, we've been always told we were self-governing, at least when I was younger, but then it seems like a fairy tale today to most people that we're self-governing because we seem to be dictated on every move and every avenue that we want to do in our lives, including what makes us feel safe and how we need to feel safe. But, obviously it's by those few opinions that are mistakenly believing that we all believe the same thing, just because they force, with some sort of brutality with police force. And so now 90% of the people start wearing masks because they're afraid of it. And then you have the government that elects saying, oh, look, we thank all those people that are supporting us by wearing masks, but yet they make it seem like, hey, look, they're supporting us, but they didn't show like the evidence before of the police brutality of why people are actually afraid to actually step up and say, no, I don't want to wear a mask. And these are the things that if you know how to exercise, like for instance, those police actually do work for us. And if you know how to use your corporate certificate, then you can actually have them. See, the way I see it is like they're not supposed to be pushing on ideas on people. They're supposed to be not siding with the people. They're supposed to be siding with the law and making sure that people aren't getting into a brawl and getting in between and stopping it. And that's about it. They're supposed to uphold the law, protect and serve, right? So if there's an aggressors, they need to get in, intervene and stop it. But when it comes to pushing a belief on a society, when we have all these freedoms, they have no reason to just use intimidation to make us wear these masks and then say, oh, look, all these people are for us and supporting us, but it was support by force. So it's not really support. But again, if we're not actually using our corporate instruments that we were given, so we are free, 100% we're free. We can act the way in whichever way regard we want, but if we want to make change, we have to use these corporate changes by using our corporate designs. And this is where things can get complicated. And that's why they had lawyers that were supposed to do the best for us, which they haven't, or so right now they haven't been. And, they've been kind of making us feel like we can't do anything without them and that was the purpose of being here. But their purpose was actually to protect all our rights, to protect all the assets that we carry within each land, to make sure that we don't get that the terrorists don't get the hands on these things, to make sure terrorists don't get our identities. Like, these were the things that our system was supposed to be placed in for. And right now it feels like the system is being obviously in the hands that are not in the proper hands, because it seems like we're being used as pawns for something when we actually shouldn't be. And because we don't know how to address for ourselves and write for ourselves, they're writing for us and they're writing our history for us. And this is where the problem arises. I mean, we all have problems trying to enact law. Well, how are we going to enact a law if we can't enact any other law that's working for us right now? And so there's obviously got to be something more than just one thing, one law. Like, who even authorized that law? So it comes down to what we've all agreed on as humanity. And all these things are destructions. I mean, right to the point, like, you know, like when you look at a kid and you tell them, like, oh, you have to eat supper because you didn't clean your room. And they're like, oh yeah, I cleaned my room, even though they stuffed everything under the bed. Well, the thing is, it's almost like they're taking up pieces of our laws that protect us and finding ways to kind of like make it like it's justifiable. And that's that destruction of our human rights. And we haven't been speaking up to those destructions. And now it's come to this point that we're at right now, right? And so we need to like definitely figure out a way that we all come together. And I believe like we have like 193 countries. I think if we can expand to more countries, more people, that, you know, we come together like they've done when they did the Declaration of Universal Declarations of Rights, human rights. I mean, these sort of things are important for everybody to come by, and if everybody in a different nation, different country is doing such thing and helping out in such a situation, then I think, you know, we could stand taller and stronger. And I think even once we, you know, get our own cells in our own orders in our own present lands that we're each in, I don't think we should stop there. I think we need to keep moving forward, and we need to like spread this out to countries that believe in sort of dictation and being able to do this sort of stuff, so we can actually eliminate this sort of threat of happening again. Because we're not going to get like, what's it okay to say, well, it's not okay to happen in my country to my people, but then those other people out there are other people too, and they need that help and they need to get out of that situation. Half those people are forced in the situation they're in. Half the time we think, well, you know, the Chinese communist people, some people will think, oh, all the Chinese people, but it's the communists, it's the government people that are acting in their favors that are the ones that need to be actually ridiculed, and they need to be brought down. And we need to think really collectively on how to do that, and all minds should be open on how that is. Whether you think it might be good or bad, we all need to think about something, because maybe something might appear bad, somebody might say, oh, that's actually a really good point, or vice versa, right? But we need to bring that together without having any, you know, feeling of anybody feeling like they can't come forward, say something that they might want to say that might help the situation, or that might be under the bus that nobody's seen, or that might, you know, be over the top, or that it's not relevant. You know, we all need to come together and think of terms of what is what, because apparently the laws aren't working. So we have to figure out how does the law work then if it's not working the way it is, right? So the way I know it to be, and we'll just take another like minute or two here. The way I know it to be is that we have a certificate. On the certificate, it tells you the use and conditions of that certificate. If you look at those conditions in use, it'll tell you that you do have delegation authority. Just read it thoroughly, what your certificate says, what the contents are. You'll see it's under seal. You've been given delegation authority, but it has to be put in writing, and you have to tell them of your power, and then action will happen. But this is something that we need to practice. You have to associate your title on your certificate like you associate your name to yourself.
Now, with the birth certificate, that came after all of this. So, Marietti, are you comfortable? I know you're muted right now and we can't see you, so I appreciate if you're not wanting to be as active as you normally are. But basically, we just have questions as to how to bring all of this together best and to ultimately exercise the gifts and tools that we've been given to be able to call for peace. Like, that's all we really are needing here, is coming together and actually restoring the rule of law, which is to say that we are the ones that must understand, in order to gain entry into the secret societies of the past, there was a secret question with an answer that you had to get right in order to gain entry, because that was when the sacred was respected, instead of the scared that they're trying to make us subjects and servants to. And the question was, how do I know when I am suffering? There's the call. How do we know when we are suffering? Or it is...
Give me a second, okay? I have to turn that off.
Okay. That literally, symbolically, the significance of that is astounding. Tim Wheatley, would you have anything to say? You who helped co-host several inner child peace summits with me and did presentations on the child within, who is looking for a responsible parent to help guide us through these uncertain times. And we've got everything we need to be able to go for redress. I've got the next letter right here, ready to send off. We've done the videos as to what needs to happen in the practical lawful descent.org or .uk, Chantal.com. Lawfully organized descent.com. You've got everything you need to be able to know what letters we need to send in order to call people to account for their actions. And we're submitting notices, not just letters, like I learned after all of this, because it's not just about sending a letter. It's about putting people on notice to say that treason is being committed. And that's what we're all saying right now. And it's being committed against abusive parents that don't give toys back to kids after they've taken them away and the kids start behaving again. So, Tim, please.
Well, I've been looking at the Magna Carta and the Article 61, and there have been so many contradicting versions out there online, whether it's been canceled, whether it's been repealed, replaced, new versions do not include it, therefore it's not acceptable. I have taken a look into the documents in the court cases that were used around, whether it's Australia, New Zealand, the UK, and Canada, and I've seen where a lot of the use of it has not been successful in a manner. And when I took a look at that, and my approach has changed away from Article 61 and more onto the crimes against humanity, because I've actually taken a look. And this is why the blessing of being in Mexico and the time that I've been able to do is the effect of one, the toxic stress. Toxic stress has gone up 275%. What are the adverse childhood experiences, which are recognized around the world, even through the World Health Organization, the CDC, the Canadian government. They all recognize it as a fact that causes physical, mental, emotional ailments. Now, at levels that we've never seen from before. And I'm looking at how we can stop this when it comes to the logic side of things has never worked. I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness, right? So when you try to talk a Jehovah's Witness out of what they're believing, it will never happen. And you know, many people have read and watched either the video or the transcripts from the spy that was brought over by Trudeau, not our Trudeau, but his daddy. And how they made it clear on how to manipulate society and corrupt it. And then even once they're done, you can show them the facts of the truth and they will not believe it. Now, I've taken a look at the inner child trauma, where it comes from. Now it's adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, which are now Gabor Mate out of Vancouver. He says he has not, in 20 years, he has not found an addict on the downtown east side that does not have severe ACEs. It just doesn't happen.
Severe what?
ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. And these are now they're fundamental in health all over the world. And I'm part of the ACE Connection group, which is a global group of psychologists, therapists, neuroscientists, and researchers on these childhood traumas. Because right now, the restrictions are causing the crisis. Whether it's in the way that our minds work, neuroscience, every single time you see a mask, your default mode network or your fear-based network or your stress switch is activated, which shuts down the rest of your body. So this is where our trauma is coming from. Article 61 or no Article 61, we're looking at a 2 generations or 3 generations. This has now been proven that it's actually in our DNA. We have and this only came out 2 weeks ago. The DNA shows, and the genome shows a predisposition to PTSD and a predisposition to these adverse childhood experiences. And now we're creating an 83% growth across Canada and all over the world. But the studies that are coming out are from Canada and from all over, and it's clear. Even the Lancet, I know the Lancet put out that hydrochloroquine, was dangerous, and then they had to recant it. And again, it's people only read that old headline and they don't understand that the Lancet had to recant it and say it's actually beneficial. But the Lancet is the #1 organization for publishing articles. And they just did a whole evaluation of ACEs globally. And they said this is what is causing 40% or 50% of various healthcare issues. We have to take a look at the emotional change, not the cognitive, not coming at things logically, but if we take a look at what it is actually damaging emotionally, mentally, and then physically. The stats back up what we say emotionally. And I don't know how that applies with Article 61. It's something that I'm going to fortunately have time in the sunshine to take a look at more deeper and more clear.
It's true. Yeah. So there's a whole lot of trauma going on. And so we're trying to just gather the answers. Marietti, are you ready to speak? I heard you come off of mute, I think.
I did. I had to answer the phone call, so I apologize to everyone. It was just like, ugh.
It was the timing. Perfect.
I think it was perfect timing. So it was good to hear from Stephen and Tim. I'm all about Article 61, so I will speak a little bit about what I know about it and where it started. So for me, it started last year when everything went chaotic in the world. So we started noticing that our world had changed, and so I needed to find the truths. So I was looking around to find out how we could do it and what needed to get done. And I figured out that something had to change. And there was a lot of fear. There was fear. There was from myself, my family, from my grandchildren. And then I started to do some research. A friend of mine got me an intro, and she said she went under oath, and I'm going, okay. And then she got me an invite to join a group called Practical Lawful Descent, UK, Canada, and Commonwealth. I waited for a while, a week, 2, 3, and then I sneaked in just to kind of observe what was going on. And I found it interesting because I thought, you know what, like we have a government that is totally not listening to the people anymore. Our world is turned upside down, and I wanted to know why. So I started doing some information, education, reading some of the documents that came in. Our mentor, David Robinson, has figured out Article 61 of Magna Carta 1215. It was invoked 20 years ago. Whether we like it or not, it was invoked. It was according to Constitution Protocol. The barons had to do it. It was at a time during the 70s when a lot of treason was happening, especially in the British or under the EEC, European Economic Committee. And then that went into European Union and now the United Nations. And I don't know if anybody on this page here or group today doesn't know about UN. And UN, we know the Prime Minister wanted a seat. And if we start doing the research and we have documentation that proves that it's all treason, well, I quite enjoyed that. I was liking that there was evidence of why Article 61 was invoked and why it is the only law in effect and what this law is all about. So Stephen, you had mentioned that you thought one law wouldn't do enough, or if you could do anything. Well, this one law, Article 61, has actually deposed the Queen and the government. So today, for the past 20 years, we've had no government, but we have had actors playing as government. So the Article 61 is a rule that was put in the Constitution, Magna Carta 1215. And the following year, they tried to remove it. Well, of course, the people would never remove their protection, but guess who did? Who tried? Nobody can go and take away what was on the charter of the Magna Carta 1215. There are 63 clauses and they're all there. We've been told that there's only maybe 3 or 4 that are there, but that is all treason documentation. 1215 is when, you know, the treaty got sealed by King John, who was a tyrant at the time. And so the barons, and they didn't want to defend him anymore. So they made a deal with him and they both agreed on certain clauses that was in there. It was not just on one way, but it is there and it's part of our education system. They have taken it out of the educational system too. So our police officers don't know, most of our politicians don't know, and our courts don't know. But we have way more, because under Article 61, for every crime that is out there, there is a law. Well, the law for treason is Article 61, the security clause. So who is not committing treason right now that we can look around the world? So under Article 61 in Magna Carta 1215, we transfer our allegiance from admiral law to constitutional law. So we're taking, and then you mentioned the birth certificate. I don't know about that one, but what I've learned is that we don't need a birth certificate under Article 61, because once you take the oath, it cancels all contracts, previous contracts. And we know that the birth certificate has been a treasonous, from the treason regime for years since it came to be. So that's my side that I know about it on Article 61. But the best thing I can suggest is, like everyone else, we have the documentation that shows where treason has been committed. We want the politicians to go and answer to the call of treason, and we're informing and educating them every time we put someone on notice, because it's got all of the treason clause in there. I don't know if that makes any sense or what, but to me, collecting evidence right now, because there will be trial, because they are committing sedition. They've usurped our governments, they've usurped our courts, they've all powers, positions of power, they've managed to put themselves in. Well, we're looking at not 1 year or 2 years or 5 years. We're looking at least 800 years. 1215 is when Article 6 Magna Carta came. So you're looking at treason from way before then until they put it together.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying there. I'm, however, saying that if what rules, like, I mean, we're putting out everything, right? You guys are putting out everything, articles and art for Article 61, making the oaths, putting it all out there. The world hasn't changed. So are we sending it to, you know, improper places where they're just taking it but not putting it where it's supposed to go?
No, we're actually sending it at the right places, but criminals will not prosecute criminals. So our courts is what we need back.
Right. So
look at politicians, they're a lot into politics, into lawyers and stuff, right? So the system is corrupt.
Right. So the way I see it coming, like how we can get that back is that, you know, the police themselves, they believe that the politicians are actually upholding the law. and they don't argue them because they're police officers, even though they're really like, just supposed to really keep the peace and stuff. So they're not like administered on all the laws, like all of the laws. They just know that they're supposed to uphold the Constitution. They know they're supposed to uphold these laws. They have a very low knowledge on what laws to uphold realistically, that are in the main source of like keeping the peace, but they're not in the big term of the whole concept. So, let's look at it, for instance, like when CAS first started coming out, they had to get a warrant. The police wouldn't take away a child without a warrant. But today, the police, don't even look for a warrant, don't even ask for a warrant anymore. So a lot of these apprehensions aren't even being used with a warrant, because the CS will be like, I need your assistance, and they don't even ask for a warrant anymore when they're actually under obligation to ask for that warrant. And these are sort of the little things that are falling out of the system and out of place. And if we get back pulled and give our police insight on the laws that apply within their own land, then we can use them to actually put behind these people in our land that are corrupting each of these lands. So until we can't get the police, until we get the police on our side or the military, we won't be able to do any change. We have to enlighten them. Going to the government's not doing anything for us.
Well, right now we're gathering the evidence, so that's important too.
Yeah.
The police don't know about the Magna Carta too, because it's been purposely taken out of educational systems, all of the educational systems, from our children to the police, to the military, to the lawyers. They've been misinformed on purpose.
Right. So who protects anything that we're trying to do if the police aren't even helping in the situation? Because if they're supposed to be the defense and the protectors.
We need to inform and educate them, and that's what we're doing with these, what is that?
It's today's
The
message.
treason clause?
No, it's just today's message. By not displaying what is desirable, you will cause people's hearts to remain undisturbed. So this is great. You guys are having conversation that stimulates the heart to bring us together. So I just.
Well, we need to get informed and educated, yeah. So that's where I started.
Yeah. But so who is it, the people that were, to get that kind of like, how are you sending it? We have to give them really concretable evidence. Like I know I've done in Canada, I've given them very good evidence that, they're going to know that basically everyone that holds a certificate has a right, that if they're basically protected under those laws, that they're protected on the crimes against humanity. They're part of that corporate identity that allows them to get food, that allows them to get the police to protect them, that allows them to get the medicals that they need, that allows them their education. This is the corporate identity that we have on each land, but we can only take control of it by knowing our titles, and we can't take control of the police without saying, hey, I'm not from this other land that plans on, blowing up this land. I'm from this land, and this is happening, and this needs to stop. We need to be a little more clear about who we are speaking as an individual while we're writing to them as well, right?
Yeah,
so
speaking as sovereigns, yeah.
Right, because when we're talking as like just as a customer, as opposed to somebody who owns it, there's a difference on how they're going to react to what you're saying, right, in any situation. So you have to really pull that title that you are also the owner on this land, and your authority counts, and what you're saying is authority over the elected people, because we are the elected of the executives. We are the executive appointed, and those are the elected people, and we rank over them. And we need to.
Since 2001, there's no elected people, because Article 61 deposed of that.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. You see, we still have elected people acting. So is it being effective?
Yeah, they're the criminals right now, and that's what we're collecting evidence on.
But the police then, if they haven't been, if they haven't done anything yet, then we need to.
Everybody who signs. Yeah, and everybody who gets under oath does declare their standing to the police and the courts, because we're transferring from admiral law, commercial law, to constitutional law. Right. So the police get informed. Everybody who signed an oath is under oath right now, has been informing the police about the treason. They're informing and educating them too of all the crimes that are being committed.
Right, but even same with the crimes against humanity. Crimes against humanity holds even is very specific that anyone. It doesn't matter if you're royal. It doesn't matter if you're the military commander. It doesn't matter if you're supervisor, and any of the people that are below you that
All
are
right.
doing
Now,
any of these things will be held accountable as well, right? So,
well, under the treason clause, yes.
well,
Yeah, we're here.
oh, sorry, I didn't know if she stopped or if I lost her up there. Under the there's a treason clause which I think is 15 years. And then you got crimes against humanity, which is 25. So both of them, I think, have equal authority, the Article 61 and the Magna Carta, and the crimes against humanity, because they're both holding everyone accountable. They're both saying you have no right to appoint and take
But where
anybody
do we
away
take
from
that to? We have to go to the court system, right? And right now we don't have a court system that's common law, court de jure, jury
Right.
nullification, etc.
Right. So I think what happens at this point is if we go under, say, Article 61, we don't know how to present a court or anything, but
We
we'll
don't
say,
go in the fraudulent courts right now because there are no courts that are for the people. They've been
right.
usurped, so we need to
but-
get them back. And that
yeah,
is what we're working for. Sorry.
no, sorry, I kept thinking you were done there. Sorry, it was my question.
Oh, no, I'm French.
Okay. I think what we need to do is we need to, if you walk in, like if you have the confidence that like you have a restaurant and you walk in and you want to take control over it, you have to have that confidence that you have control over it. The courthouses, they belong to us on the land. Whoever is on the land, those courthouses belong to those people.
They
The
belong to
courtroom-
us, the people, yeah.
right?
But we
It
don't have
belongs
it
to the-
right now.
Right. It belongs to the people. So if we get those people, when we get people enough in there and say, no, this is ours, this is what the law states, and we show it to the police, but we have to have it in very clear written form.
I'm so
That's the-
happy you mentioned that.
But which part?
Well, we're going for the press for redress. Basically, we want 800 years of criminals out of there.
Yeah, we want criminals gone, right? So what
And we
happens
need
is
tonight.
what happens is now, like, if you stand on a position that you're on your property, right, and someone says, no, you need to get off this property, but you say, okay, call the police, but when the police come, the law protects you, right? So you have to present that law that protects you so that they know that, yeah, this person's right. You have to have the law that says, you know what, you have title to this land here. And then you can talk about the land that you're on, that you're saying that you're part of, right? Because we're all part of like a community on lands that we're born across the world, and we all get along together and we all integrate with each other everywhere, which we need to practice on doing. And we need to also like figure that when we're on certain lands, when you were born there, it doesn't matter who you are, like where you came from, but where you were born, and you've lived there for 18 years, 19 years, I'm almost certain in your heart that your friends, your family, your land now, that's your land. No matter where else you came from, your parents might be from another land, but when you're born in a land and you stay there and your friends are there and everybody that you love is there, that's your land. You'll protect it, and you're going to make sure it doesn't get poisoned. You're going to make sure your next generations can do something about it. And this is the thing, that's why they gave us this ownership, so that we will protect. They know this is why it was put into the possessions of the people that are actually from the land, and not, to dirty corporate people that want just to, take our money and have more control, when they're actually using our actual money to actually take this control. But we're not taking that position. So it's like, hey, you know what? There's nobody left to actually do all this work, and nobody knows how to do it. So you know what? We could get away with telling them that they can't have this, they can't have that. We can shut down this, we can shut down that, because none of them, even though they have full power, know actually how to say, no, you're fired, get out of here. We'll just hire some other people that are actually going to do the job for us. I mean, there's many. Even kings and queens have fired prime ministers for not acting, properly. And we were actually, all of us, every single person on this land, on your land, was given that crown status of being a king, queen, which sovereign, head of Commonwealth, all of those titles is all one and the same. Like when you say father or dad, it's still the same thing, you know? And these are the things that we need to realize in our heads to be able to collect and gain control of those public offices, because that's a public office and they're using that public office to use power and control to tell us we can't have this unless we do that. And they make it like, you know, it's okay to say, you know what, we all have to take some part in our community, but to make someone like struggle, like say for instance, to live in a home. I mean, some people barely can make it and they're working so hard. I mean, that's total debt bondage right there. And that's a criminal offense, right? That's against human rights. So it's about, if I go run up to a police officer and he doesn't know where I'm from, what organization I'm from, he's either gonna pick me up and deport me because I'm not from the land, or he's going to find out what I'm stressed about and maybe collect me as a refugee, someone running away from a bad land, or he's going to say, okay, you have authority to be here. But even those police officers, if you hear every time, we are only taking orders. We're just taking health official orders. And who's giving those orders? Someone who knows how to write it down and knows how to administer it on paper. And that's why it's happening, and we're not being able to, because those people elected, if even one of us writes something different than what those people elected are doing, that over trumps what they're putting down. And the legislation law has to go with what the Crown is saying, not with what the Parliament, or not with what the politicians are saying.
Which is exactly this, which has been laid out. So with everything Chantal and I have been doing to follow the steps, I love this because what's happening right now is walls are coming down. Because the realizations that hopefully are being had is the fact that we're talking the same language, except we're using different boxes as labels to identify what we're going towards. And the truth is that if we drop the walls, which are the ways that we define and decide and how we're going to contain what we're saying, then we see that it's actually the same thing and the tools are there. But there's two O's that we have to observe. The first is actually the notice of lawful objection and declaration of standing in law, which is sent with a photocopy of your oath. Except for this, we actually put down in wet ink, knowing that black and blue ink is the color of the corporate identity that they have given you, which is why they always want you to sign in blue or black. Red is in blood and purple is reflective of being sovereign. Therefore, all of us should really be switching over to grab a pen that is in purple to sign these documents and basically put the ones that need to know on order, on notice. And this is why we say notice to agent is notice to principal and notice to principal is notice to agent, which means whoever this is addressed to has a responsibility as the one who received it from a leadership perspective to disseminate that information to all else who are involved within that corporation. And that is then how, after 10 days after sending this, which is actually the one that you'll find in the guides, which were what were referred to as the units on Facebook. Now it's done under guides, but under step 2, when you've sent off to the police, there are 5 pages here that allow us to get to the 3 witnesses so that it's signed to say that other sovereign beings have seen what we are submitting. And then we've got enclosed evidence. We have the Telegraph report on the invocation of Article 61, Peers Petition Queen on Europe. We have Exhibit B, the Barron's Petition 2001. Exhibit C, Article 61, the whole translated text. Exhibit D, Lord Kilmer's letter to Edward Heath PM. And Exhibit E, link to FCO 30-1048, Edward Heath treason evidence, a PDF file they can download that's over 200 pages. So in fact, we are sending all of the evidence. That's what these notices are. So what we're asking is for people to actually step under the oath and swear allegiance to the Constitution and not the Crown, understanding that the Crown is being treasonous. And in 1215, Our ancestors, see how the lighting changes. Our ancestors gifted us with a protection clause that is now being disrespected. And for 20 years, actors have been performing. We've been giving them our money, and that's how black magic works. They have to tell us what they're doing to us, and then we laugh because they say it like a joke, and then they say they deserved it. Well, we don't, because now we say no. And so after we have sent this off within 10 days of having register mailed this notice package that we personalize to the Crown agent who is doing business as their corporate position, because these are just actors that have roles within companies. And so that's how we have to start treating these ones that have previously been seen as the authorities. And after that then is done, we then go in. I believe, Marietti, you need to tell the difference, because Chantel gave this when we were there earlier, and ultimately this is the notice of obligation according to English constitutional law. And from what I perceive, having not yet read it aloud, is that this is what we're actually going in there to put them on notice of, to say you received the treasonous evidence, and now we're personally standing before you, and there's going to be a number of us. So if you are local to where Chantel and I are, then please come along, and then we can actually do what's required to get ourselves in the driver's seat. And that's why I got so excited, because as you were speaking, Stephen, I realized we've got literally a driver's seat sat in the picture that is empty, because that is how the throne has been being managed by so many until now.
You know, one of the things, if anybody is a dimensional 3D box, right? It's a simple little box you draw out. It plays an illusional trick on you. So if you stare at it for like a minute, you'll start seeing it move, right? And it's like that little mirror image that we're kind of like being placed in that seconds as they use us as their pawn to take our money, to take, like, you know, for instance, like we could be harvesting with our money, could be enslaving people in another country because they could be stealing our money to use this for those sort of things. You know, we need to definitely get a hold of those corporation businesses, the people acting in our behalf, the ones that are our employees. And yeah, like you said, we need to treat them like they're employees and not like they're authorities, because they're not authorities, they are employees.
Absolutely. So Marietti, if you would speak into that, just to clarify that I do have it correct this time before I've already called the police and told them we're coming. Please.
Let's just see the first one. Okay, the first thing a person would do is change their allegiance from the monarch, the deposed monarch, to constitutional law, which is the oath. We usually send the oath to the barons because it was invoked according to constitutional protocol through the barons. This is following the Magna Carta 1215. Yeah. So we do the allegiance, we transfer our allegiance to the Constitution through the barons. That's number one. Then we're going to do the 5 notice process. The first notice is notice of objection.
Notice of objection.
Basically, you're declaring your standing in law. So it's notice of objection and declaration of standing in law. You're going to send that to the police and to the Crown, because you know, like if you get stopped, you're going to tell them you're under oath. You're standing lawfully under Article 61 Magna Carta 1215. So you're going to read, there's a card, we have a tool that we use, and then you're going to show them your oath if you want to, and because you're transferred your allegiance. So you're not asking the police or the court for anything, you are telling them.
Yeah, okay, get what you're saying. You're making your statement to them.
Yeah, we're standing on, that we're going to be standing lawfully in law.
Okay. I got a question. So when you say the Constitution, what Constitution are you talking about?
Magna Carta 1215.
Okay, so when we talk constitutions, the Constitution of the Magna Carta 1215.
Right now, yeah, because that's the only one that's in effect. The other ones are treasonous documents. They've been, the government tried to change it into acts and statutes, and they don't have that right.
Right. Okay, so perfect. I see what's going on with that. So that makes it really right on standing of like sovereign status right there is what you're doing, what that does. And even when you stand sovereign, we can still go in and we can actually fix those corporations at the same time. So it sounds like there's like the start, and then we can go in and fix things as it goes. So once you have that status of Article 61, you still have the status to be able to exercise corporate businesses, but you don't have any exercise over any individual.
You have, well, no, Article 61 gives you the right, like you have your unalienable rights. You have the right to work, you have the right to travel free, you have the right to food.
So
Yep.
with Article 61, how do you say get a house? Like, how do you say purchase a house? Because it goes through a bank, right, which is unlawful, right? So
Well, right
how do you,
now, because we're full-fledged war right now. So if we don't know it, we are. Because when you
Yeah.
have a government that takes away your weapons, you've got tyranny.
right,
So I wouldn't go get some money right now from the banksters.
right. So I'm saying, like, if somebody was homeless right now and they were under Article 61, what would their avenue be to be getting in a home?
To getting, oh my goodness. Well, just because with me, when you're at war, it's not a time to buy. So you have friends, you have family, you got to have somebody you could go at.
Yeah, I know. That's what I know. I hear what you're saying. That, and
But I wouldn't go to the bank and make, because like your signature is what makes that money.
yeah,
So why would I want to give my money right now to the gangsters where I will have to pay them more interest than not?
right. And what about, like, families that are people that don't have families or anybody? Like, how do they get any assistance, or how do they get help if they're under Article 61?
Or would they be under social services or not?
Maybe, maybe not.
Because you should
Like,
be able to access them all, because it's the people that pay the taxes, not the government.
okay, what if people on Article 6 or Article 61 are faced with, hey, they're on social assistance or something, but they say you have to get the vaccine in order to be part of
Well, again,
to get this assistance, right? But I know they can't. I know they can't, right? But let's say they decide to say, okay, well, we're going to cut you off because of it, and they do. What's recourse then?
wow, that's a serious one, isn't it? Holy moly.
Yeah.
Ideally, is before this happens, you should be under oath, you should declare your standing, and then you should put those people on notice. So Alberta Health Services should be on notice. PIWU in Canada, she's the Minister of Health. Teresa Tam, Chandro, Hinshaw, all those people should be on notice. So you
Yes.
have to do the groundwork. You really have to do the groundwork and get it done before it happens.
Yeah.
But there's also, like, you got to know your laws. You got to know what your rights are, and you got to be able to assert them. But most of us don't know it. So the group of Practical Lawful Dissent is a study group. All the paperwork that we need is in there right now to help us, because basically what we're facing right now is depopulation.
Yeah.
Like, we got to wake up. Like, sooner or later, we got to come to terms that this is not going to ever go back to not wearing a mask.
Right.
That's the destruction. That's the smoke and screen. The real agenda is that.
So it almost appears like then, if we used Article 61 separate from the entity of the certificate.
Yeah, but again, your certificate was made during a time of treason. When you're born, you don't even touch the floor, and you already belong in the system, basically.
Right. I hear what
But
you're
it
saying.
always breaks that.
But would treason only be really considered something if we were taken away from somebody else or hurting somebody else? Like, if we
Kidnapping
were,
is another one, but there's a lot of things that can fall under the treason. Everything that is against the law, like anything that is against our natural law, our common sense, common law, like anything that's against that is falling under the treason law right now of Article 61. That is a powerful clause. It's a
Yeah.
security clause for the people in case that the monarch ever gets usurped, and it did, because we can see it. And the military have a special place in their oath that if the crown is ever usurped, they can step away from it too, and they need to protect the people. So again, Article 61 is our one forever binding security clause that we have right now. And this is not the first time it's been invoked. This is about the 5th time in its 800 years. Fifth
yeah,
time?
no,
Yeah,
you-
5 times.
Do you have the dates when it was in?
Well, 1215 is when it was done. And there is an article on Facebook somewhere in the group.
That would be valuable.
1216 was the first time that they had to fight for it, because they tried to remove the clause, Article 61 clause. And then there was, I think, 1300, 1500s. The one with the birth certificate in that time, that was another time.
With this
And then 2015, 2001. I don't know, is that 4 or 5?
2001.
1290. Yeah, it's 4 or 5 times right now that it's been invoked in its 800-year history.
Yeah,
And
and
it's made for the people, by the people. We need to unite and use it.
but that certificate comes from 1215 as well with the Magna Carta. This came with the Magna Carta. This is part of the seal of the Magna Carta. So that's why I'm kind of so that's why I'm kind of like wondering like how this doesn't affect with that.
Well, okay, so as far as I know, because the birth certificate falls under commercial law, admiral law, maritime law, whatever you want to call it in there, it falls under there because that's when they invented it. Was that great fire they had, and then the birth certificate came about. And again, it's another form of your social insurance number. It's all tied into all that. So the oath breaks that, the fraudulent documents that we have out there now. But I do encourage you to get in the group. Like, are you in the Practical Lawful Descent group?
I haven't been. I don't want to step on anyone's toes on my view or opinion on it. Like I understand where Article 61
Well-
is, but there's a lot of unanswered questions that I have that make me not skeptical about it, but just uncertain about the future of it because I don't see any like actual plan that actually makes sense, except that we are under sovereignty. But then how do we go back to chopping down trees, fishing, and planting for ourselves when we do that? Like, what do we
If that
get?
ever happens, there's a lot of work that needs to get done. First, we'll need to hold them accountable in trials.
Right?
Get justice, yeah. Treason is a mighty, it's a very ugly one. This one is even worse because it's a death of all Commonwealth countries, what they're going against right now. So Article 61 is the one clause that can help all Commonwealth countries.
Yeah.
My suggestion would be in the group though, is that yes, if you have a question, base it on an Article 61 perspective, because the group is Article 61 Magna Carta 1215.
Right.
Yeah. And if it's anything against that, we had to put some rules because otherwise everything gets washed down. We have the remedy. The remedy is to go and take back what is ours. But the only way to do that is unity of the people, Article 61, take back our buildings. We need to bring back court de jure or, common law courts, the way they're set up to be, properly done. And we need the right juries in there.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of, this has been happening over 800 years and they did a very good job at hiding it for 20 years from the people. It's been hidden from the people because they know it's worked before. This is not the first time. It's not Magna Carta 1215 has been used. This is about the 5th time that we know of.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
But I'm not explaining it properly. I wish Jackie was on because she would just like spew it out. She knows it. Article 61 is the highest law in the land. Once it's invoked, it becomes the only law. You either are for Article 61, standing under constitutional law, or you're aiding and abetting the regime. And that's serious.
See, what I'm getting here is that what I'm hearing is that I either have to start hunting for myself, fishing, and cutting down trees to build a house, because if I use any sort of my democratic birth certificate to exercise any facilities like food, grocery stores, health, social services, I'm committing treason. If I need to eat and I have to use one of those places, I would be committing treason, because that's almost what it's sounding like to me.
Is it?
And so where does that stand? Should I be going out there and starting to build my own house right now?
That's way above me on that one. I don't know. Gee, Stephen, I don't know, because
that's where
you should have the right to anything and everything, because once you're sovereign, you have the right to all these things unless you don't take it. You need to know how to assert the law too. You should be able to go to the grocery store. You should be able to go to the hospital to access everything because we have a right to that. Who's taking it away?
I think
Am I missing it?
I think what it's about is about why I keep showing today's message, in that we have to actually create the vision of after we have done the groundwork and after we've exercised the action plan or the call to action to actually take our power back. So it's just like, if we don't actually create a vision that is strong enough for it to pull people, then it will only push people away, because the uncertainty will make them say, well, wait, like right now I can use the system that has been created since this one that I understand is what Stephen's saying. And what I'm hearing, he says, is that if I follow what you guys are saying, then I no longer can use the thing that I have learned how to master. Would that be appropriate, Stephen?
I would say that's pretty accurate, and I don't see it being a treasonary, because I wouldn't be using it too bad, right? It would be for what I would need for necessities or to live and be a different person, or so I don't see it being a treasonous activity unless you're actually showing ownership over people and dictatorship over people. And that's where I'm kind of like wondering why we would give that up when it's kind of like supposed to be for the Declaration of Human Rights for everybody to be under one harmony. And I understand like we shouldn't have anybody above us, but if we've already had people that have been working in this sort of situation, and I'm sure that people have been coming out, Edward Snowden, all those other people have already made calls on these sort of bad things happening, and I'm sure they've always known Magna Carta existed. So I'm just still trying to figure out how that's going to make an impact by sending in those statements. Like, what's the future hold for everybody if we can't get the criminals out that are there right now?
Well, they will get out, because that's why we're collecting the evidence too, right?
And they're not just statements. Statements
No,
are
the
bills
lawful
have already been
documents.
paid. These are lawful notices that
Yeah.
include treasonous evidence and signatures of witnesses of sovereign beings who are willing to say, I declare the one that is signing this document and submitting it to me is also a sovereign being, declaring my standing as one who sees the treason and is not willing to play ball any longer in your courts, which is why the notice of lawful objection and declaration of standing in law gets sent to the COPS courts and councils. We have to send the notice to each of those domains to say that you guys are corporations and I'm a sovereign being, which means that I don't actually play in your domain, in the same way that if you were to get married compared to be in a common law relationship and choose to change your mind about said relationship, you have far more power as a common law partner than you do as a married one under the law, which then has to grant you permission to leave the thing that you originally said you were willing to get into.
Right. So maybe we need to have things written out that to use Article 61 for people to be able to administer those things that they would need by using those things. So say, for instance, let's put people in a situation that they go to a grocery store today, right? And they're wearing them, they don't want to wear the mask, right? We've already seen some people have accomplished the situation of going and making it grocery shopping and leaving. But what can arm people within their hands and in their grasp with their confidence? Like, how do we get people in large numbers to say, hey, I'm going to go to the grocery store and I'm going to this location here, and maybe, maybe there's a bunch of other people that are under Article 61 that could kind of also go shopping at the same place around the same time and have each other's backs in this sort of situation as well, so that more people are more accustomed and more knowledgeable with it. Because if you all of a sudden had 3 people talking about it in the store and having each other's back, then more people are going to be like, what's this about? And then they're going to start seeing more of their freedoms, as opposed to, hey, look at that guy freaking out or going against the law or rebelling, right? And I know it's not going against the law or rebelling, but
careful when you say law. What is legal is not lawful, right? So right now there's no acts and statutes that are in action. They're all void and null and void basically because of Article 61. Then we need to inform and educate the people. So yeah, you're right. By going in with more than one person, you're way better off. But
Yeah.
like, we've got the documentation that will put them on notice too, and informing them of what they're doing. They need to prove that Article 61's never been invoked, and they can't because it has been invoked for the people. So it's up to
So
us people to stand together and make it work faster.
Mhm.
It was
And-
hidden from Canada for 18 years at least until Jackie found out about it. They've done a great job at hiding it. What they did in 2001, when it got invoked, there was a little article in the paper,
yes.
and the radio or TV station, Jackie was saying, they did a little blurb, something important happened in the Monarch, and boop, gone.
Yeah.
So
I-
they
I-
didn't want it because they know Article 61 is the treason clause. They know they're committing treason. They just need to play it right now as fast as they can. And it's up to
Mm.
us, the people, to wake up because we've been put in a trance basically. For the past 20 years, like people have been put in a trance. They've been pulling the wool over our eyes for so long.
Yeah, and I
We're,
felt it.
we're waking up. Well, you need just one good dog and then the sheep will follow.
Yeah, I know, and that's we need to teach in education what roughness looks like.
Well, the nice thing
And
with the group is the education is in there. You can learn from the 1942 documents that if the Germans didn't win the war, they would go to paperwork, and that's how they've gotten into the EEC, the EU, and the UN. Yeah, and it's what we're seeing right now and living too is that NWO, it's coming. So the only thing that can stop that basically is the treason clause because they know about it. Do you know what happened to the barons that invoked Article 61?
What?
They lost their job at the House of Commons and the House of Lords or Parliament. They lost their jobs.
Yeah.
That's the power that Article 61 does. They were fuming that they invoked that clause. Last time it was used was over 300 years ago. So who
yeah,
knows what they did to those people, to those barons? They could have been threatened with their lives and their families' lives. We don't know.
Stephen had actually mentioned that yesterday and talking about this because of what you've done for advocating for your niece to get her out of the CAA, for instance, as the story
Yeah.
that you had shared yesterday. And so if we don't know our rights, then we don't have any. And that's why this constitutional caution card is one of the tools that's provided with this. Because as you say, Stephen, we need to have written everything or recorded everything. Filming is so important because then we can say, this happened and you can prove it. Although at some point with the way that technology is going, even video may not be enough, which is why our written hand is so important. And the constitutional caution card that I've left up for as long as what I have is because this is the answer that we have to the ones that ask us to participate in their fiction that we choose not to be part of the narrative of. We say, I must caution you, whereas I stand under Article 61 of Magna Carta 1215, which was invoked March 2001, according to constitutional protocols. Any attempt to enforce unlawful acts, statutes, or legislative laws on myself will be taken as an act of high treason for which you will stand trial before a jury of the people, which is what we are seeking, and which still carries the gallows punishment of death by hanging and personal asset stripping too. I urge you to consider Nuremberg. I was just doing my job is no defense, as evidenced at those trials, as both Stephen and Tim were saying. These are crimes against humanity, and we are saying no. And in order to do that, we must declare our standing as sovereign beings, which is why we have to have the stance. We have to have the self-image, which is why when it may have seemed that Tim was going off course in terms of talking about the inner child and Gabor Mate's work, he actually was perfectly on track, because what we are being called to do is actually become responsible parents to ourselves, because clearly we've been giving our power to parents that don't care for us more than the paycheck that they get for cashing us in and our freedoms with it. So back to the constitutional caution card. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. Maxim in law. Anything you say or any action taken by you against myself will be used before the jury of we the people who will be filling those seats once we actually restore the rule of law as we are working towards here together, and these conversations which may feel uncomfortable and charged and triggering because there's energies being released within them, all of those are required for us to be able to move forward. So it's brilliant, and I'm so proud of everyone who's shown up today. To deny constitutional law is sedition at common law and carries full asset stripping and life in prison. Do you understand? This is what we have to say to the ones that come up to us. And then we say, what's your badge number? What's your name? We're going to write it down. We're going to let them know that we put you on notice when you came to take us down. And these are the things that we have to get more confident in ourselves. And sometimes when Chantel is sitting there, when I'm asking questions to get the answers to things that we need, such as when I called the court and was trying to ask one simple question: who is the top crown agent that I need to be able to address this notice to, so I can put them on notice that treason is being committed and submit the evidence? And because notice to agent is notice to principal and notice to principal is notice to agent, that means that you're just the first to know, but you should by law actually be informed, because their responsibility in receiving this is to let you and everyone else around them know that we are saying that treason is being committed. So I just let you know, and I need to know who to send this notice to. And I was told it was a difficult question, and I didn't understand. Why is it a difficult question to simply ask, who do I need to send this notice to? And so when I pressed, and then after getting the business done, then I asked about her personal experience and perspective of this. That was thought to be a bit much, and to have put her on the spot that I was talking to. And I didn't understand that, because people are looking to be offended. Stephen, you have to go, or you got something to
No,
say?
we have something that will tell you how to explain what she was doing.
Okay.
Okay, because in the world with the certificate, every time I ask who's the head man or who's the head minister, right? By the law, we are actually the head minister, so they don't really. It's a difficult question for them, because you have to find that answer for yourself.
Woohoo! We just did.
This is what happened, right? Because you are actually the person in charge. So when you're asking who's the person in charge, well, you are.
Yeah. Right.
You get what I'm saying? So how could they would be committing treason if they actually took that, because no one has charge over you.
So is chief constable, like chief constable is a position, but they said that they didn't have that when we tried to get to the police, because I had called them too, which was how then when Chantel and I thought that we had to go in, and then I said, Chantel, we're going to the police officers today.
The Article 61, add some stuff on there, what people are treasonous over, what they're doing that's treasonous. So you give it to the police, then the police have to investigate, and then they have to follow through with that.
That's what this is, Stephen. All of this prepared.
Right, but you have no minister to give it to, because you are the lead person. Now you're saying there's treasonous stuff going on.
Well, we have to have it addressed to somebody that works there, and we don't work there. We don't get a paycheck.
Address it to each other. Figure out like an office for like the group, like just a PO box office or something, and then send it to each other, because you need to send it as an oath that has been brought out there. Because if you say give this to the minister in charge, then who's going to take charge when you're trying to make a note that they're creating treasonous? Who's going to? We
just send it to a director then, because the director is the principal or the president, essentially.
We're provisional directors as well. We're provisional directors as well.
Marietti?
Oops, I will unmute. Yeah, good one, Stephen. But I don't know, like the certificate to me would come under legalese, because it's still got to go through courts and so on for you to make it real or not.
No, right now what he's saying is, because when I called and I asked a very simple question, it was a roundabout answer to say I couldn't give you that. I didn't understand. And he's saying that it's because technically we are the top person.
Well, we would be like known as sovereign king and queen if we wanted to, but there's still a position, a job that they have.
Exactly.
And that could have been what you were asking for.
Why
Yeah.
was it a difficult question? I don't understand. I'm really genuinely curious why it was a difficult question to have asked for who is the person that I need to send this notice of treason to, who will let everyone in your institution or corporation know that it was treason being committed and I'm not willing to play in their court. How is that a
She
difficult
probably
question?
was, yeah, she wasn't understanding your question either. She's probably not aware of Article 61 or the Magna Carta or anything like that, right? Because she's got a job.
But I know, and it wasn't her that was saying it was me being difficult. It was another friend who was in the situation who observed me and then said, Laura, like, you really put her on the spot. She's just doing her job. And it was like, no, that's not enough. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just asking for information so that I can send off this next bloody notice, which didn't happen today because I didn't get the information, and then it has to get photocopied, and then I have to do all these extra steps to get it out there. But like, I don't understand why it sounds like I am difficult when I asked a simple question. I don't understand why it's difficult to say, like, what's your perspective on what's going on with this pandemic? I don't understand why it's difficult. And then Chantal and I were having the conversation about the difficulty in asking questions.
I don't think it's actually, when they say difficult, they don't mean difficult. They mean, I don't want to give you this information. It's the same when you ask about the ingredients in vaccines. It's the same when you ask about the PCR test. They don't want you asking. That's it.
Yeah. But even, and I want to just say too, and I said it yesterday in the interview when Stephen was sharing his perspective, that should be uploaded by the time we're off here or within the next couple hours. So definitely check that out at Laura J.E. Hamilton. It was brilliant, and we can come back again next week, which we'll do at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time again, like we do every Thursday now, as a great way to gather. And I am just really wanting us to get on board as a people to stop actually attributing the V that label, because what we're experiencing right now is not actually to be clumped into the same category as that, because it's an experimental biological agent that has not been proven, and the animal studies have been bypassed because all of them have failed where coronavirus was concerned previously. And then also to say that this is yet another tactic to make us afraid of the corona, which is the gaseous aura around a sun, of which we are one, for we are God's people. And I know that that then brings in religion, and people say, what? And radars and everything go off, and just the offense is immediate, and just feel that in your body if that happened for you. But it's simply to say that what has happened is that we have been separated from our source, which is why we think we have to go through a govern, control, mental, fictitious entity to get to our power. And the fact is that we gave them our power, which is how we got to the power. And so if we just extract the middleman and become it for ourselves, that's when we then stop fearing the virus, which in itself is actually our empowerment. And then a reminder too that enlightenment is the ego's greatest disappointment, because when the old world dies, and the new one, which is the new orderly world that we can fixate on instead of the the new world order, the NWO that everybody has been giving their energy to. Well, if we're not putting all of that energy into what we're creating together, which is why we're gathering, then we don't have anything to get people to put their heartstrings to. So that's what we're gathering here. That's why we're asking the questions. That's why we encourage you who are watching this replay. We encourage you to come out next week so we can have more conversation like this. And it has been an hour and a half, and I want to be respectful of everybody who came today. I feel like it was loaded with insights and perspectives. And so I'm grateful for everyone who has contributed so far. Does anyone else have anything that you would like to say before the end of today?
Yeah, I just wanted to let people know about a couple of videos that I've watched in the last couple of days that are just the best videos that I've watched to just consolidate all of the information, the history of what this is all about, going way back before the Magna Carta. And it's William Keat, who's one of his videos is on the practical lawful descent. But this is an interview that Chris Mader did with him on, I think his channel is called Wake Up and Unplug. and it's Common Law Part 1 and Common Law Part 2. And he just does the most amazing job of consolidating all the information, all of the history, and just, for the first time, it was after watching these videos that I really hit home to me, that I really felt like I knew very clearly that this is why I'm doing it. And basically, it's just all about true democracy. And that's what this is all about. And sometimes I think actually using that word would be a bit more useful, because this is all about a systems change, not just, I think in some people's laws, just changing the law is just a small part of life. But actually what we're talking about is just changing the whole fabric of the way our world at the moment works. But it has been done before. Anyway, it's on Wake Up and Unplug. It's Chris Mader, is an Australian guy, and it's in two parts with William Keat, and he is just amazing. His passion for it, his clarity, the way he puts it across.
Maybe
Even though
we'll
he's
get
kind of all over the place, he's down to earth in the most upper middle class type of English way.
Maybe we can get William Keat, if you're watching this, or if someone who knows William is watching this, please come to the next summit so that we can actually have a conversation. I'll see if I can reach out to you personally and see if it would be great. So
that would be brilliant.
We'll do that. And if you can send me the link for those, Catherine, what we could even maybe do is host a watch party where we actually stream it and then can watch it, and then we can gather and do it that way. So then we are not feeling like we're all going down these rabbit holes, and we actually have people that have higher perspectives because of the amount of research and homework that we have been willing to do, can then come together and get more questions answered and start rowing the same direction, which is really what all of this has been. Even if, intentions are not necessarily clear at the start, it's always through action that we find people's intentions, because that's where the attention flows. Anyone else?
Just want to say thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you as well. Brilliant. Thanks, guys. 1:30, an hour and a half on the dot. We are amazing, guys. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for showing up for your country. Thank you for showing up for our world. Thank you for showing up for yourselves. Thank you for showing up for the unborn ones who can't speak for themselves. Thank you for showing up for the ones who are being masked because it's parental choice. Thank you for being willing to say treason is being committed, and we will not stand for it. Thank you. Have a great day, guys. Peace out.
Guys.
Whoop, whoop. Well done. Awesome. Cool. Peace.
Peace.